If you had heard the dialogue I have in my brain with myself, I was...
Let's say a 36-year-old is at a dinner table with the 43-year-old version of Adam, and the 25-year-old version is there as well. What would the 25-year-old say, though, to the 36-year-old?
25-year-old was probably even more insecure.
Really?
Totally.
Even more judgmental?
Totally. He was brutal. You would be disgusted by the words that I would tell myself to try to motivate myself. From the second I woke up to the second I went to bed, trying to pull every string to make sure that I was the highest performing, most successful, most well-known, richest, best looking, all this shit that the world had to the outside world, I was just the jolly, fun kid. I always had a smile on my face. I was always excited to see you. But internally, like, I was a toxic drill sergeant.
Adam, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, this is great.
To be here.
So I think a lot of people start podcasts by being like, well, tell me about yourself and what do you do? And I hate that. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to ask you the question I think more people need to be asking when they meet someone new, which is, who are you? Who are you? Start there.
How esoteric do you want to get, man?
Let's take it back.
So, who am I? Well, right now, I am a 40-year-old man who lives in Venice, California.
You look 31,
Thanks,
maybe 32. You're 40?
Yeah.
You look great.
1984, baby. Pretty strong then. And I like to wake up early. And I like to go to bed early. And I was raised by, like, my parents. I'm very much a product of my parents. What else?
Were you always close with them?
No, of course not. I can't imagine any kid. Well, I don't want to assume too much, but I think me realizing how special my parents were happened over a long period of time. And like a lot of great things, it took a long time for me to truly appreciate and to understand. And then the more I met other people and I saw and I learned and I asked really great questions of other people to understand their stories, and I realized how negatively impacted certain parental relationships can be. I started to realize, like, whoa, mine did a really remarkable job. Also, as I got older and started to align with their points of view on the world, and they're very spiritual, and they think remarkably big. And they were obsessed with learning and education and constantly growing. And, when I'm 12, I'm like, I don't want to learn anything.
Yeah.
I want to, like, play more baseball.
Or Madden.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't a video game kid, but yeah. I was like I'm going to be outside throwing stuff against walls for hours on end.
And you grew up in upstate New York?
Upstate New York, small town.
What brought you to California?
The ocean.
Really?
Yeah.
People say that.
I lived in Manhattan for 14 years.
Yeah.
And I loved that place. And I was one of the guys that lives in New York and thinks, like, it is my lifeblood and I need it. And I don't know how I would survive without it. And it is the center of the universe. And when I stepped away from my company and I had a little bit of bandwidth mentally, I was just like, I want to run an experiment. Like, how does my brain work off of Manhattan Island? Like, how do I talk to myself? What's my nervous system feel like? What's my quality of thought? How does my body feel? What new ideas am I going to have? How much more patience am I going to have? I didn't think about patience before I did it, but then I realized coming off of it, Manhattan vibrates at a very unique frequency. And it has the ability, in my experience, to impact those who live there in a remarkably powerful way. Everyone there knows it. And but then once you leave, you slow down. There's also, like, it's also really, really cool. And and just being close to the ocean, feet in sand, ability to like hike. I hike every week. I surf every week. Yeah.
I moved from New York to California just over a year ago.
Ooh.
Yeah, born and raised in New York. Moved to Colorado, moved to Boulder when I was 18, was there for almost 8 years.
Why Boulder? Did you go to CU?
Went to CU.
Okay. What made you stay there?
I loved it. It was the first time in my life where I felt like found my chosen family, found where I belong. Definitely did not identify as a New Yorker growing up. And then after I stayed for 5-6 years first time around. And then towards like the last 6 months, I was just like, gotta get out of here.
What happened?
I just was growing up and I felt like this was a small town. I grew out of it almost and I needed more diversity. I needed more ambition and I didn't know what it was. So I moved from Boulder to Denver thinking that'll do it. Denver's just like an extension of Boulder at the time.
Yeah, it's not Denver.
And I just like basically just woke up one day and I was like, I need to move back to New York. But I'd never done New York City on my own. I only did it like growing up there as a kid. Being under 21 in New York City is very different from being over 21. So I moved back and I was like, oh yeah, this is my home.
Okay.
Like this is the real me. I had to go find myself and then kind of work my way back.
So you land in New York. How are you spending your days?
At the time I was building startups, running around, being a total tool, buying expensive clothes, spending too much money on rent. I was 23 years old.
Whoa, where was the money coming from?
Made a little bit of money selling a small company at the time. And
cool.
Enough money to think I was like on the top of the world, but realized after about a year of that, like, oh no, I'm like every other young kid in New York who thinks he's on top of the world. And then COVID hit on my 25th birthday. I went back to Colorado and I was raising a fund at the time. I was like, I'm going to do the hardest possible thing during COVID, which is raise a fund.
What was the fund thesis?
We're going to invest in startup studios.
Oh, cool. So it's kind of like a fund to fund.
Absolutely a fund to fund play.
Yeah.
And was chasing the money. And I'm a creative. And I woke up after like a year of that. Thought like, damn, I'm spending my entire life in Microsoft Excel. And I miss making videos and making logos and building websites and building stuff. But like, I'm just a finance guy now. Like, I don't wear Patagonia vests unless I'm skiing, in which case it's like an Arc'teryx vest. It's a whole different type of vest. But that kind of led to Thursday Labs and in a lot of ways even led to this pod. But I bring this up because I've had this love affair between New York and the East Coast and West Coast since I was 18. And that was like New York and Colorado. And opposite ends of the spectrum. I think New York is like all work and no play if you're outdoorsy. And Colorado is all play and no work if you're outdoorsy. I needed some balance. So I moved to Venice. Totally found that balance there. And I bring this up because last week I was in Mammoth. I love Mammoth. And it was the first time, I didn't even realize it, but when I was there, it's the first time I had genuinely spent more than 24 hours completely alone in nothing but mega solitude. It was like middle of the week. I was there just with me and my dog for 3 days. And I had some friends with me before that and some friends with me after. And I was like, first of all, it is so quiet. Like deafening silence, 0 decibels. When you're in LA, you're like, no, it's pretty quiet there compared to New York. No, there's always sirens and helicopters, and like you always sort of hear the ocean a little bit. There's noises. This was silent, and it was really hard.
What was coming through?
It was,
what were you seeing in your brain?
I was just sitting with nothing but my thoughts.
What kind of stuff was
generally
coming through?
For the first time? I'm like, I just gotta like distract myself at first. First day, I'm like, TikTok. Instagram, dating app, Twitter, Slack. I'm looking on Slack, like trying to find something to do. And it's like 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. Like you shouldn't be just sitting scrolling TikTok 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon for an hour. No one wants that. And so then I was the next day I'm down on myself for like, why is this so hard? Why can't I just like literally sit here and breathe, just be with myself? What's your experience like with that type of storyline? Coming from New York, moving out here.
Man. Okay. So I'm fully addicted to all the vices, right? I'm TikTok. I have to put like the time limit on it and have the fancy apps that tell me that delay the opening for it. I'm addicted to it too.
Does that bum you out?
Yeah. It's sad. Speaking, and there was, especially I saw a video on TikTok of a school in the UK that did 3 weeks no phone.
Interesting. For children?
For the kids. They were probably 7th grade, 8th
Okay.
grade. So they were like
the beginning of understanding how to use a phone. Really.
Yeah, but like it was a big part of their lives. And obviously the little short 2-minute thing like followed an entire storyline, but it was a little bit biased because it had a very specific perspective. But I know my attention is being hijacked like by that. I think it is very hard to sit quietly. I think the thing that I am starting to get really curious about when I am bored, so that's really what it is boredom has been removed from the human experience. Mm-hmm. Boredom for hundreds of thousands of years was arguably a majority of your time, like sensation. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it went away. I'm a little scared of like what could happen. And I'll just speak to me. Like when there is no boredom. And so when there are these moments, I'm getting curious, and that's why I kind of asked you those questions about like what thoughts were coming through, mm-hmm. like what intuition was coming through. I mm-hmm. think I am starting to get very interested in my own intuition and how to increase the bandwidth to that intuition.
Yeah.
Just as a straight, like, I am trying to acquire as much information and data as possible.
Yeah.
And what I have been taught is that any new information that I acquire needs to either pass through my eyes or my ears. And that's very limited bandwidth. Like, I have reading issues. Like, I am dyslexic. I'm also 40 and my hearing is going. But like there is also this thing that sits in my stomach that is arguably this massive treasure trove to like massive amounts of information that can span lifetimes and span timelines. And so I am trying to get myself to be a little quieter. What that looks like for me is going on solo hikes, which is not completely silent, but I'm not on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, like, even when I go on hikes, like, it's hard for me to not put my headphones in and listen to a song,
mm-hmm.
like even on a hike.
Yeah.
And then surfing.
Yeah.
I try to surf solo.
That's a good hack for where you can't have your phone.
Yeah, you can't have
You're
your
just
phone.
there. You're in it. I found after probably 30 hours, so end of day 1, almost into day 2, I started to really miss people. Like specific people. I was like, man, I'm missing my best friend. I haven't seen him in a while. Missing my ex-girlfriend. We broke up a month ago. Missing my family. And then old me, it's funny, would have been like, get rid of that. Like, no, don't miss people. Like, you're good. I would dismiss that. A lot of judgment towards myself. But now new me is like, it's okay to miss people. It's actually a beautiful thing. It means I had love in my life. That's great. So I sat down, I started journaling about like, what did I miss about these people? And the next thing I knew, I was like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I'm like ready to go to bed. Past the time. It's kind of funny how I think a lot about like the friends who are writers and they'll like go lock themselves in some remote cabin for like a month and just write. And I always ask them just like, oh, cool. Like, what did you write? Like, tell me about the outcome. But I never asked about the process of getting to that. And my friend Kat, I'll give her a little shout out. She's an incredible writer, and she has done this before, maybe even does this regularly. And after this episode, I'm going to go ask her, like, when you sit in complete solitude by yourself for like 6 weeks and write a book, like what do you feel? What's coming up along the way? And I can only imagine her answer to be something like the good stuff comes out like right on the other side of the, I'm bored. Or being a kid and being like, Mom, I'm bored. Like, do you remember being a kid and saying that? And then your parents just like, go outside. And you sit there and you're so like crawling out of your skin bored. And then you like see a stick in a box. And next thing you know, you're like off in some beautiful world of imagination creating something. So yeah, then by day 3, I was like, all right, I'm ready for my buddies to come meet up with me. But I was like, now it's actually kind of nice. I'm like, I got past that initial like brutal, I'm so bored, I'm so alone, I'm so silent. And now I'm sort of like, this is kind of nice, pretty relaxing.
Yeah, like those people that came up, like you didn't ask for my POV on this, but
I'd love to hear it though.
Like those people that came through, like that was your intuition.
Yeah.
That was your intuition telling you. And I don't know if you reached out to them or sent them a text or sent them a voice note, but like in those situations, if my parents come up, they're immediately getting a voice note. Hey, I just want to tell you how much I love you. I want to tell you how much I care about you. I don't know if it was appropriate for you to reach out to the ex yet or not, but even like sending her support and love, like that is, and like we are connected, right? How many times, and it happens to me constantly where I'm thinking about someone and they text you.
Yeah.
Dude, the other day, this is kind of freaking me out. And I haven't told anyone this, but like I was on a hike and it was like kind of towards the end of the hike, I'd say 3/4 through the hike. So I have like left my busyness back and I am just like in flow and relaxed and like feeling every step and like feeling the wind on my skin. And I just like asked the universe, I was like, hey, who needs more love? And this random girl that I had met once and honestly had a really weird interaction with at a party at my house came to mind. But it was like vivid. It was like, this is this girl. And so I was like, okay, send her love, send her love, send her love. And after the hike, I went to Whole Foods in Venice.
She's there.
She drives right past me as I'm walking across the street to get in.
Amazing. Love that.
I didn't say shit.
Yeah.
Because I was a little
but
freaked
you take
out.
Note.
Yeah. It's just like, there's something going on that our logical minds can't really wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
It's just, it is.
So how did you process that the rest of the day?
Again, people are going to think I'm crazy. I constantly talk to the creator. I constantly talk to the universe.
Yeah.
And so it was just another data point to be like, thanks for reminding me. Thanks for reminding me what the playing field we're actually playing in and how big this is and that I'm taken care of and that it is all good. Everything that's going on is happening for me, not to me.
Where is that line from? Because I use that line all the time, and I heard it somewhere, and I can't remember where it's
dude,
from.
that's ancient.
That's ancient?
That's thousands of years.
All right.
That's not some like new age.
That wasn't some like TikTok video or some documentary.
Chase Tuning wasn't the first one to say that.
I love that line.
So I forget where I was going. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, when you said journaling, I journal every day. 3 pages, like artist way style, just free flow of consciousness.
Yep.
It is the most valuable use of my time. I've been doing it every day. Morning, first thing, coffee, journal. For the last 3 years. I've gone through countless journals. I never reread anything that I write. Everything gets burned. Cool. So when I started doing this, so the prompt of it is just like free flow, everything, whatever is top of mind, free flow out. Whatever's top of mind, free flow out. And there's obviously a lot of junk in our brains that's distracting us, that's pulling our energy, that's working through energy remarkably fast. And so this was kind of just a way to be a flow out. So here's the exact moment that I realized I needed to layer on another guardrail for it. I was writing about a heartbreak, unrequited love. A friend of mine who I had fallen in love with, and she wasn't in love with me. And we had talked about it, and she handled it incredibly well. And we're still really, really good friends. But I'm writing it.
How old are you?
It was 3 years ago, okay. So 37. 36, 37. And I'm writing this, and rather than writing her name, I write her initials in my journal. I write her initials. And I'm like, ooh, there's something buried in that. So the first thing that goes, like, what if she's in my apartment and reads it, and then she knows? I'm like, motherfucker, like, there's no way this girl is ever in your apartment, finds your journal, flips to this page, sees her name. Also, she already knows.
So there's some weird fear and hesitancy there.
So I figured it out. I was afraid of the older me looking back and berating the younger me. Like, look at you, you sorry piece of shit. No one loves you. Like, all of that shit, all of the, like, the forward-facing embarrassment in case I went back and judged the version of me that I was at that point at 36, 37. And I realized I'm not afraid of other people's judgment of me. I am afraid of my judgment of me.
And what would younger you have said to you at that time, though?
Younger, like that.
So you're 36 at the time,
Yep.
afraid of 43-year-old
Yep.
judging the 36-year-old.
Totally.
But let's say the 36-year-old is at a dinner table with the 43-year-old version of Adam, and the 25-year-old version is there as well. What would the 25-year-old say, though, to the 36-year-old?
25-year-old was probably even more insecure.
Really?
Totally.
Even more judgmental.
Totally. He was brutal. If anyone, from when I was 16 to when I was 38, or when I first started, honestly, like using ayahuasca, if you had heard the dialogue I have in my brain with myself, I was brutal. You would be disgusted by the words that I would tell myself to try to motivate myself. From the second I woke up to the second I went to bed, trying to pull every string to make sure that I was the highest performing, most successful, most well-known, richest, best looking, all this shit that the world had to the outside world. I was just the jolly, fun kid. I always had a smile on my face. I was always excited to see you. But internally, like, I was a toxic drill sergeant to myself.
This is huge, I think, right now for a lot of young men, and probably not even just young men, just men in general. This, like, the words you use to describe it are heavy words: brutal, relentless, like drill sergeant against ourselves. I'd love to really dig into this one. Where do you think that comes from for you, but men these days?
Well, I think I can only speak for myself. And I think I created this character. I created this character from a bunch of archetypes. Growing up, I loved martial arts movies, and I loved military movies, and I loved sports movies. And there was this drill sergeant, this sensei, this coach who was this iron hammer that would ensure the, Daniel Sons and the star players were staying on course. And I was afraid of failing. I was afraid. Here's what it really was. I was afraid of not realizing my potential and not fulfilling the purpose of why I was put here. I didn't know. I wouldn't have said the purpose of why I was put here when I was younger. I would have definitely said I'm afraid of not realizing my potential. But that was the sensation that was going on. And so I think I took all of the martial arts senseis and all of the drill sergeants and all of the coaches that I saw in these movies and in these shows, and by training myself, and I created this like master disciplinarian. But he only lived inside of my head. I was even the one piece of feedback when someone gets to know me, maybe after the first 2 or 3 months, it's like, you are remarkably tough on yourself. You hold yourself to insanely high standards. And it's true. And even though I'm aware of it, I still do it. And I pay 3 coaches right now, and they all basically are in different ways and different, are there trying to tell me to just take it a little bit easier on myself.
A couple of years ago, I was seeing this gal. She was awesome. Loved her. I wanted to date her so badly. And we actually met through a mutual friend, lived in different cities, talking, texting a lot. And then for a couple of weeks, maybe like 6 weeks. And then we actually finally met up in person. We were walking together. And she asked me, like, what's your biggest fear in life? Great, first date question, but we didn't just meet that day. And my answer was not reaching my full potential, which I thought at the time was a great answer. and a very ambitious man answer. And a lot of people, I think, have said similar things that I've heard from them. And I'm like, I very much admire that. And she sat with that for a second. She kind of got quiet. And then she looked at me. She's like, I hate that answer. And then it ended. She didn't want to date me. She told me a couple of days later she wasn't feeling it. And that's okay. But
what's your answer now? My answer has changed.
I'm not sure. I need to think about that for a second. Biggest fear. But what I'm really curious about now is like, why do so many men have this genuine burning fear of not reaching their full potential? I wonder if a lot of it came from war movie culture, video game culture, all that. Maybe our dads or our moms.
I think a lot of it can be traced back to our parents.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it can be traced back to our parents. And ask the question again. Let's see what comes through.
Why are so many men deathly afraid of not reaching their full potential?
What I'm called to share is it's impossible for us to get it right in this conversation because everyone's so different.
It's an exploration of it.
Yeah. But I also think it's important for guys who have it and it's crippling for them. I'd rather discuss and kind of get your POV on how to address it or what to do about it versus the why it's there, because I think we could bring in the 20 smartest guys in the world and everyone's going to have a different answer to that, depending on their POV on past lives and parent stuff and when does childhood trauma start and stop. The fact is guys like you and I, we have it, and it eats up massive amounts of our energy and our brain space. But what do you think guys? What do you think I should be? How do you think I should be thinking about dealing with it?
So, a friend of mine shared something with me not long ago where I was trying to decide, like, okay, my business is starting to really take off this year. I didn't intend for this to happen. I built this thing from the start to be a little bit more of a lifestyle place so I could have a lot more balance. But now all of a sudden, like, being called to do so much more and I'm going to have to work 24/7 and just different ballgame. Ultimately, like, of course I did that and I'm glad I did that. But what he said to me was, he goes, Jake, you know how they define hell? Like heaven and hell. You know how they define hell? It was like some fiery place in the pits of Mordor and whatever, like looks horrible. It's like, no, hell is right when you die, you're sitting on a couch and God shows up with a videotape and a television, puts the tape in the television, and he shows you a movie of how good your life could have been, what you could have achieved, what you could have done, but you didn't. And you have to sit there and you have to watch that movie. That's hell. So he's like, so what are you going to do about it? It was very motivating. I was like, I'm going to build the company. It was like this big thing. We hugged it out. And I got back to work early next morning, took my thesis, nootropics, and got to work. Part of me loves that. Part of me thinks that the approach, though, is actually to just really appreciate how ambitious you are, period. Like, just be proud of yourself for like having that ambition, having that level of integrity and drive, but scratch the self-judgment, because a day when you make a mistake or you fail, how do we talk to ourselves? Like, how did our dads talk to us when we were kids? How did some of our moms, like, how did our teachers talk to us? All that's pretty destructive. Keeps you going, snowballing down this spiraling staircase of badness. And I don't know, I don't find that to be healthy or motivating. It's kind of like, I love to climb mountains, literally. And whenever I get to the top of one mountain or getting close to the summit, I can see the next one. So when I get to this one, I don't enjoy it because I'm focused on the next one. So my whole life, I'm constantly like measuring my success on how many peaks I reach and how much money I can make and how many women I can date and all these like fake accolades, basically. Another friend of mine said to me once, she goes, it's not about how many peaks you climb. It's about just enjoying being someone who climbs mountains. That's it. Sometimes you're going to be injured and you can't climb a mountain for a little while, but like that's part of the game. some days you're going to trip and fall and hurt yourself and like stumble and make a big mistake, but like that's just part of the game. But at the end of the day, like just be proud of yourself for being able to look in the mirror and say like, I fucking climb mountains.
Yeah, I have two things that I'm reflecting back. One is this idea of like seasons. We all go through seasons. I had my New York season and now I'm having my LA season. So if someone were to ask me what's better, New York or LA, they're both. It's just different seasons.
Yeah.
And I also think that we go through different seasons. Like right now, how old are you now?
I turned 30 in a couple months.
All right, so you're 29. You know, you might just be in a season of where like you are just like optimizing for the chemical drip, for the constant peaks. And then, so you are in this moment right now, a highly like achievement-based climber. Mm-hmm. But inherently, you will get to a point where you will be a like footsteps climber, where it's just like, I'm just enjoying every step. Mm-hmm. And there will be different parts of your life. And I think there's also, you can enjoy this moment. And yes, might be a little bit easier to have a net more happiness if you could just transition from achievement based to just like the other type of climber where you just enjoy being a guy that climbs mountains. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. But that might just be a different season, mm-hmm. right? There's a reason that you have been imbued with this like next peak mindset at this moment in mm-hmm. your life. Mm-hmm. Like I can say that because I have now transitioned from like I remember when I started surfing, I was not good, but I was so embarrassed that I wasn't good. Mm-hmm. And now like, I don't give a shit. Like the second my wetsuit gets wet and the second I get out to the lineup, like I'm good. All the dopamine that I'm going to get is done. Yep. Yeah. A couple nice rides are great, but like, I don't care. But like me at 29, zero chance that this would have been my mindset. And so like there is like this natural curve from like this highly competitive, and it probably has something to do with evolution and it has something to do. And like you are in like this build mode where everything in your life is like it's like max inertia, potential mm-hmm. push mm-hmm. towards this thing. Mm-hmm. So she's right. And we should also realize like we can also just be like, yeah, I'm in this season. It's not going to last forever. That's number one. Number two, the other thing that came up for me was, I think a lot of guys that have this, I would challenge them to see if they have any clue what they really want. Mm. I would say this caused me so much pain in my 14 years in New York. I was optimizing for like the New York goals, right? I wanted power and money and influence. I wanted to have a big company. And so, but I didn't know what I would do once I got all that money. Yeah. Like if you were like, well, what are you going to buy if you sell your company for $1 billion? Yeah. I would say that shit all the time, $1 billion. It's like, what the fuck are you going to do with $1 billion? Me, I had no clue. I'm a simple man. Mm-hmm. Like I've had this shirt probably for 20 years. Yep. And so probably the best exercise that I ran was once I left Thesis and I had moved out to LA, I ran a thought experiment and I said, what if rather than you stepping away and, you know, we had sold the business for the amount of money that businesses like that normally sell for, and you had a large amount of available capital in your bank account. And I went and I mapped out exactly what my lifestyle would be like.
All right, let's break that down. Where'd you go with it?
Cool. So I went everything from like, where would I train? Who would my trainer be? Mm-hmm. Where would I go out to dinner? Who would the friends be? Mm-hmm. What events would I host? Would I want to host events? Where would I travel? How would I travel? I got down to the point where I could tell you exactly what streets I wanted to live on. Mm-hmm. I could tell you how high the ceilings were in the house. I could tell you where I bought furniture from. I could tell you what sheets were on my bed. And luckily I am a simple man. So I didn't, all of these things, like I don't want a boat. I don't want a massive 20,000 square foot house. That feels exhausting to clean. Like I don't need, like I love my little Jeep Wrangler. Yeah, maybe I'd buy a Range Rover.
Sure.
But it's like not that much more expensive. It's a couple $100 a month.
Yeah.
And what I realized was like with the money I had now, I could probably live 80 to 90% of the lifestyle that I would live if I had an exit. And so I started to ask myself, okay, so why would you absolutely suffer for the next 30 years until you're 70? Cash out, or 80, cash out, and then just for only a 10% difference. And most of that 10% was philanthropic. I would just donate more to the places I was already donating to. And that took so much pressure off. And so when people, again, when I would describe the season, I would say, I am living my retirement lifestyle. It's like, how would you describe your time in Venice? Retirement lifestyle. I would call it exit lifestyle. A lot of my really close friends have heard that word exit lifestyle a lot because, yeah, I went and I'm living in the house that I would live in if I had $100 million.
Yep.
Doesn't cost that. This is the house that I would want.
Yep.
Hosting Shabbat dinners. This is what I would do if I had a ton of money. I would have all my friends, 30, 40 of my friends come, and we would have Shabbat dinner together. And I didn't need to suffer. I didn't need to put it off. And so I would, I think more guys need to run that thought experiment.
I can only imagine. I'm sitting here thinking of my version of that as you're saying it a little bit. And I've done like diet versions of that experiment. I haven't gone as granular as like what sheets to put on my bed. And I'm totally going to do that tonight when I get home. But it's like, I can only imagine how liberating and freeing it must be. Like, look at that spreadsheet. Be like, this is exactly where all my money would go if I had $100 million in the bank account. And then realizing I don't have that amount of money in the bank account. But 80% of everything I just said I already have. What the fuck am I stressing about?
Or I can afford.
Yeah, like
or I can pay the monthly on it.
I'm like literally almost living that life right now. Just
Yes.
make a couple tiny tweaks and I've already got it.
Totally.
So what the hell are my Sunday scaries all about? The hell am I dragging ass out of bed in the morning for, like stressed about? What was that like for you? Were you just wildly, you said freeing? I mean, talk to me about like where you were when you had that epiphany moment. What was that like?
Dude, so I remember exactly where I was. You know the walking path between on Venice, but so it's like technically the bike path on Venice Beach, and then right between that and where everyone walks near the shops, there's like a little grass area with like palm trees, and then I was sitting with my back up against one of the palm trees watching sunset one night, and I was like, oh fuck. That was it. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I'm going to live my exit lifestyle now. I'm going to live my exit lifestyle now. And everything goes through that filter. Would I go to this event? If I had $100 million, would I go to this event? Or am I going with, and you know, what that does is it removes some of the lack mindset that I have going into certain things, because if I'm going to something because I want to, you know, I want to impress a potential business partner, or if I'm going into something because, you know, I feel guilty and someone invited me and I don't want to let them down. If I had $100 million, like, would I give a fuck what those people think of me? Like, if I had $100 million, would I be so desperate that I'm dragging myself 45 minutes at 7:00 at night to an event in Hollywood when I'd rather just go to bed early and wake up at 5 and hit the gym early? And so it has really, removed the pressure.
What about for the person that isn't able to afford that luxury just yet?
I would challenge you to make your list.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Even if you're totally paycheck to paycheck, worried about your next meal.
Make the fucking list. You'll surprise yourself if you can really get yourself truly, so it's different than like, the poor version, like, and I was also a little bit older, so I am biased because I have lived a really beautiful life, and I've had some of these like peak experiences, right? And so there is a lot of things in the world that are a little bit demystified to me, because of just the fact that I was 37 when I did this versus being 25.
Yeah.
Make your list. Do it for real, not like really, like what would you buy? Where would you live? What would the house look like? And like, so for example, if someone's living in like small town Nebraska and they know unequivocally, like I would move to New York City. If I had $100 million, I'd move to New York City, or I'd move to Ibiza, or I'd move to Tokyo. Just fucking move to Ibiza and Tokyo. Mm-hmm. Just do it now.
Yeah.
Right? Like obviously that's dramatic, but like you will be surprised by what percentage of that list you'll be able to accomplish now. Mm-hmm. And even if it's 40% or 50% of that list, mm-hmm. How encouraging is that? Like, there's so much stuff we just don't have to wait for. I remember the other big one for me was I wanted a custom surfboard from this very specific surfboard shaper.
Which shaper?
Roberts.
Nice.
Up in Ventura.
Roberts Fish.
Yeah.
Bro Fish. Good board.
And so I went up. I called him. I went up. I went to the factory. I sat with Robert. He like measured me. He like tested my balance. Fully customized Robert's board with my name on it, the whole nine. And like, that's the type of shit that I would do if I had $100 million, and I did it.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I'd love to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, which is what I recall a half hour ago, if that, you were like, I have dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember growing up, and I was totally a C&D student. I was a good artist. I was an AP studio art. I was always the kid that kind of worked the system, but with a shitty GPA. In college, I built a creative agency. Mm. It was my first company, first real company. And one of my clients was the honors program that I was in at my business school. Oh. And the minimum GPA to be in the program was like 3.6. I had a 2.8, but they couldn't kick me out of the program because I did all their marketing materials for them. And I was always proud of like, I figured out a way to kind of work stuff about being a shit student.
Yeah.
I remember like late sophomore year of college, I just decided I'm going to stop studying for tests. I'm just going to stop studying. Because whether I put 2 hours in for an exam or 12 hours, either way, I'm getting a 70. Mm-hmm. So I might as well use that extra 10 hours to do something productive. Now, I didn't go party with that extra 10 hours. I built a company. Mm-hmm. And I graduated and, moved on in my life, and think it's been awesome ever since. But I had a really hard time focusing, a really hard time reading growing up. I had a really hard time with everything that the world told me you need to be good at. I was just naturally, my brain just didn't work that way. So here I am at almost 30 years old, and I'm like, I suck at school. And it took until I was about 25 to learn how I learn, which is I'm a Socratic learner and an auditory learner. So it turns out every time I had to give a presentation or write an essay, got an A+. But anytime I had to take a test, got a C or a D. Mm. Where would I be in life today had I learned that when I was 14 years old or something? And I was like, holy shit. And my life just like totally shifted at that moment. So you built a nootropics company. Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to start by, for the people who are listening who don't know what nootropics are, like tell us about this a bit. Mm-hmm. But this general concept of focus and mm-hmm. being productive and like being judged by the world and all that. Let's start with that open-ended concept here. Mm-hmm. What is happening in our society today? What conversation is not being had loud enough that needs to be amplified?
Oh. So this is the son of a woman who was a teacher for 50 years, 45 years, I think, in the school district that I grew up in. But obviously, our education system is super broken. Countless stories of really close friends who were basically like cast aside when we were growing up who, as adults, are like some of the most remarkable, intelligent, just unimaginable minds, but didn't fit into like that way of learning. I am one of it. I like white knuckled my way through school. It was super painful, and it took me 3 to 4 times the amount of time to do the same work that everybody else did. I'd have to read things over and over and over again, and I was constantly losing my place. And it wasn't until I was older, because I think when I was growing up, dyslexia was just like you mix the letters up, but it's like it's more similar to some of the spectrum diseases where there's like all of these different variations, some more severe, some more impactful, some less impactful. I'm probably on the side of a little bit less impactful, but I mean, I can tell you even now I can listen to an audiobook in 2 weeks. I can read the book in 6 to 8 months.
Sounds about right. Same way.
Yeah. So that, okay. So nootropics. So obviously, I grow up with all of these attention issues and reading issues and white knuckling my way through it. I was always willing to work very hard, but it was very difficult. And God bless my mom for holding my hand the entire way and, getting me all the help that I needed. But, I remember, I think it like my interest was piqued when I saw Limitless. Saw this movie, and it was such a beautiful articulation of what the human brain was capable of. And that set me off. And I was like, okay, like I always knew I was more capable of than what I had access to. And then I saw this movie, and it was just so simple and easy, and I could see like how powerful our brains could be. But we needed to find a safe and legal way to do it. And so I think that started my kind of exploration into this world of, we used to call it neurohacking and brain hacking, and trying to find simple, safe, fast, relatively inexpensive ways to get your brain to work better. So nootropics is a term for nutrients that make your brain work better. Massive scale. Thousands of different nutrients, and it can go anywhere from B vitamins and adaptogens like ashwagandha to your ADHD medications and your stimulants like obviously Adderall, Vyvanse, Concerta, Ritalin. And underneath that umbrella, I would also put psychedelics, especially when used in microdosing for productivity standpoints. And the problem with nootropics and why they didn't catch on sooner was because there's so much variation in human brain chemistry. There's more variation in your brain than there is in the rest of your body combined. What one person needs is so different than what another person needs. The nutrients that will work for them, the amounts of that nutrient that will work for them, and how to combine them are going to be different. And so by nature, nootropics are very hard to just refer to your friend. So it's not really a supplement that's like, oh, I took this, it worked really well, you should take it. That works like 30% of the time at best. And so if we wanted to figure out a way to bring nootropics to the masses, and for me, this became my obsession. Once I figured out that there were safe, natural nutrients that I could take that made my brain work considerably better, I started to imagine, I was like, well, what would it feel like if the entire world has access to 15%, 20% more focus? And I start telling myself stories of like, how many more kids can be helped by teachers? How many more innocent people will be kept out of jail if you give judges? How many more doctors will be able to save lives? And so there was like this underpinning when we started Thesis of like, the world fucking needs this. and it's still there. And that why I still care so much, and why I think we've been able to continue to grow and prosper and hire incredible, remarkable minds. So then basically what ended up happening was we realized, well, we can't be a one size fits all stack. Mm-hmm. We need to we need to be more of a recommendation engine that tells people exactly what they need to take, and we need to be really, really accurate. And so we realized this is a data science problem. It's not a formulation problem. So we went out, we ended up conducting the largest trial ever run on nootropics. Mm-hmm. We built the largest data set. At that time, it was 2,500 participants. In comparison, a normal clinical trial is like at most 25, maybe a little bit long for some of like the big ones. But we bootstrapped this, and we got 2,500 people to go through our trial. Now that data set has close to 1 million people in it. So it is the most robust recommendation engine for which nootropics to take for which people. Mm-hmm. And to this day, it's like between 85 and 90% accurate. So it works for 85, 90% of people. I find at least one formula that works well for them. So that's the nootropics thing. So
for folks out there that, I have this inner dialogue all the time. Mm-hmm. Where I'm like, I think a lot of it started when I was mid-20s. I get a call from my sister one night, and she's in undergrad at the time studying like a pretty awesome psychology program. She's doing great in it. And she's like, hey, I'm curious, just randomly, do you have ADD or ADHD? And I was like, what? I don't know. What are you talking about? She's like, I'm really studying some mental health stuff right now, and I know you very well, Jake. I really think you may have ADD. Like, have you ever gotten tested for it? And I was just like, I just remember vividly being like, I don't care. Because whether I have it or not, give me some label, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go drug myself because I'm doing great. I've somehow figured out how to work with it. And a lot of that came down to just playing the right role. Doing the type of work that I actually enjoyed. And it's funny to me when the dialogue comes back to like being a kid, and you get a note goes home with the kid, and it's like, your son goofs off in math class. Your son is a class clown and can't pay attention. He has ADD and he needs to be medicated. This is a 9-year-old kid. Or maybe he just fucking doesn't care about math. How about that? But then you put him in gym class and he loves basketball. He's freaking best one there. Or we put him in art class and he loves to paint. Best one there. Like, is he dumb? Is his brain messed up? Probably not. Come on. So how much of our societal challenges around focus and productivity and discipline and all those words comes down to, well, we're playing the wrong role or we're in the wrong seat, and we don't actually need medication or any sort of supplements for it? And how much of it is, no, this stuff's really helpful?
I think both are true. That was so perfectly, eloquently described.
Oh, thanks. It actually felt kind of lackluster.
No. It was, but I think a lot of us are doing things we don't really give a shit about. Mm-hmm. I think a lot about, especially when I'm hiring for my new company, of like really over-indexing on like the give a shit meter. Like, do you really care about the mission that we're on? Do you really care about the art form that you are performing? Do you want to get better at it? Because that makes it so much easier to learn. Mm-hmm. I ran an experiment. 2 years ago, a friend of mine who's one of these is like a Instagram famous doctor came to me with a supplement idea, and he was like, everything's there, right? The market was there, the supply chain was there, the personality was there. It's just like, this is like an e-com entrepreneur's dream. And then I ran this test where I was like, okay, like how much do I really care about this disorder? And I just started with the like, okay, like in the morning when I'm in the bathroom, how many YouTube videos can I watch on it? And after 2 days, I was like, I can't even get through one 8-minute video on this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just don't give a shit about it. Mm-hmm. I called her and I was like, I'm not the right guy for you. Not because I couldn't do it, because I didn't really care about it. And I think a lot of us are doing things that we don't really care about. And so it's hard to learn it Not because we can't learn, because of that interest level.
I struggle with the harsh reality, and I have no data or proof to back this up, but I feel very strongly right now that when are we giving people a chance to even figure out what they really give a shit about?
You want to know my theory on this?
I definitely do.
Okay. So whoever I end up marrying is going to have to approve this, but I'm not going to send my kids to college. Here's what I would like to propose to them. Whatever. At that point, I'll end up spending $400,000 on college. So I will take half of that. I'm going to give you $200,000. The year one after you graduate, you take $50,000 and you go backpack. Just go explore. Mm-hmm. Wherever the world takes you, the hostel underground, volunteer, whatever you want, just go see the world. Mm-hmm. Go feel uncomfortable. Go be vulnerable. Go don't not know the language. Mm-hmm. Go experience everybody else. Come back after a year. We're starting a company together. Mm-hmm. You're going to run it all. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to help you. I know how to start companies, and I'm going to give you the other $150,000 as seed capital to do it. You have to run that business for at least 1 year. Mm-hmm. At the end of that year, you will now have touched operations, finance, human resources, legal, marketing, brand, design, customer service. You will now know what you're drawn to. And so there's a couple things. One, you want to keep running that business, and it's a healthy business. You get the next $200,000 as the next level of investment. And if not, you get that $200,000 and you can go to school. You can enter 2 years late. But at least now you're informed by what you really enjoyed doing. Which part of the business you really liked. So yeah.
When you're out in the world dating, making friends, talking to people about this, how do people typically react?
It's interesting. Very traditional women. It's a different point of view. So again, we have 18 years to discuss it. Sure. So and I reserve the right to change my mind. I just see a massive fatal flaw in. There is no way that a 17-year-old has enough data to be able to make a decision for the rest of their life. They don't know who the fuck they are. And they're about to invest $400,000. They're about to make a $400,000 investment with, like, think about it. When you were a VC, how much due diligence would you do for even $100,000 investment? Well, I don't know what size checks you were writing, but I imagine for a startup fund, they're not these massive checks. But like, you would do so much due diligence. Mm-hmm. And I've raised capital too. There's so much due diligence. They know so much about the market. And these 17-year-olds are about to go spend $400,000.
Do you know what diligence I did before I went to college in Boulder? Can I snowboard?
Yep.
Do they have a high quality I'm schmacked video? Yes and yes.
Yeah.
And then I went, and turns out, oh no, it's also a great school, and there's a lot to do there. But like, really, that's what we based it on. Interesting time in our cultural history.
Yeah, it just like doesn't line up in what we consider best practices decision making.
Yeah.
And we just like we grow and we change, and the guy that I am at 40 is so different than the guy that I am at 30, and so different than the guy that I was at 20, and so different than the guy I was at 17 or 18 whenever I decided to go to school. So yeah, it's just inferior data sets. They need more information. So go make them scared. Mm-hmm. Go explore. That's my thought.
Do you think that, well, actually, I'll rephrase this piece. What are your thoughts on this heavy culture right now around morning routines and building your stack of supplements and like mega discipline around wake up early, don't watch porn, mm-hmm. quit everything, dopamine detox, mm-hmm. Journal every day, cold plunging, sauna? At what point is it like, dude, it's too much?
Yeah. If it's creating more stress than it's relieving, then it's net negative. Mm-hmm. If you are dripping more cortisol because you feel guilty for not doing it, if it's part of your identity because you don't love yourself enough otherwise, that if you don't do it, you feel like a failure, then it's more of a math problem, right? Like all of those things are good. I do them all. I got the sauna at the house, got the cold plunge at the house. I do the journaling. I do the meditation. I pray every day. I got the big old fucking supplement counter.
Do you generally just enjoy every piece of that?
When it's done, sans resistance. When there's a lot of resistance to it and it's creating more stress than it's relieving, that's when it gets bad. I think that there are days where I can give myself like 2 hours to go to do the whole thing. And it feels great, man. And I think it's net positive. And I think the porn thing is a big deal. And, and I think it wastes a lot of energy and it pulls a lot of attention. But if a dude, but we're also beings that are meant to feel joy. And so if you're going to feel joy, and as long as you don't feel guilty about it, go watch porn, whatever, have a good time. But don't feel guilty about it. I don't know if I answered your question exactly. Listen, my POV on I'm not going to sit here and like villainize the morning routine movement. I think it's really cool. I benefit from it. I subscribe to it. There are moments where it becomes toxic for me, 100%. And then there's other times where it's a beautiful flow. If I get one thing done, I feel the same as if I get 4 things done before I have to go to the office. I think it's what we need to start being more aware of is, why are we doing it? And if we don't do it, how do we speak to ourselves?
Say more about that.
So it goes back to, I think, all right, here's my point of view on life. I think everything we do, if you extrapolate it out and you pull back, like, why do we make money? Why do we want a partner? Why do we want this lifestyle? Why do we want these friends? Why do we want to go on these peak experiences? And you just keep asking why over and over and over again until you get down to the rawest, most unbridled why. I think we're all just looking for permissions to like ourselves. We're all looking for external validation to believe that we are innately lovable. And I have been taught that making a lot of money makes me lovable. I have been taught that living a really cool lifestyle makes me lovable. I have been taught that going to Burning Man and having a big, expensive camp makes me lovable, and having a company makes me lovable, and being strong and fit makes me lovable. But what I'm really looking for is to have that internal dialogue where I can just like look at myself and be like, you're fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Just that moment where you're like, I just love myself. It's so sappy, and it's so like, and the old me would have, before, I mentioned ayahuasca before, and I don't know if we want to double click on it or not, but it became that became a very clear message that came through in my intuition of like, we are optimizing for those moments in which we can talk to ourselves internally and be like, I love you, man. I really do. I really love you. And so if the morning routine is helping you do that, great. If the morning routine is removing that from you, if it's adding more stress to your life, if it's making you feel like more of a failure if you don't do it, then it's toxic. It can be both. It's existing in both scenarios simultaneously.
So I'd love to actually double click on self-love.
Okay.
So over the last couple of years, overwhelming conversation about self-love has taken place, I think mostly for women, at least in my circles, my world. And it's amazing. I'm very excited about that. I don't hear it happening amongst the guys as much.
It's not fucking cool to talk about.
It's definitely not. I'm not going to my buddy's house to watch football on Sunday and talk about self-love.
Yeah.
So I was on a call with my coach / therapist on Friday, and I asked him, finally I even knew what to ask for the first time. I was like, how the fuck do I actually love myself? I think I love myself. I look in the mirror and I'm like what I'm looking at. Proud of myself. Feel pretty good. I don't want to be anyone else. What is the actual practice of self-love? Curious what you think the answer is.
Did he give you an answer?
He gave me a great answer.
Okay. I'm going to tell you mine.
Yeah.
And then, so it's two parts. There was, in this ceremony, when I was shown by whatever intelligences were putting thoughts in my brain at that point, that I was not put on here to berate. I was not put on earth to berate myself. I was put on earth to love myself. And then I was shown the sensations of what it felt like. So maybe for like 35 or 40 minutes, just what it would feel like in my body when I really love myself. And I got a clear idea of like what parts would feel relaxed and what parts would feel a little bit more pressure. So I got like a little carrot dangling. There's a book. It's one of the best books. It's called How to Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant, who is Naval Ravikant's little brother. Silicon Valley founder, ex-US military, raised like $40 or $50 million for his startup, built it, it failed, the love of his life left him, and he wrote basically an engineer's guide to self-love, like in a very like practical way. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Here's scientifically how you're rewiring your brain. It's the first book that I've ever listened to all the way through and immediately started again and listened to it all the way through again. It is free on Spotify if you have Spotify Premium.
I'm going to start it on my way home.
It's literally it's 2 hours if you listen to it on 1x speed. It's 1 hour if you listen to it on 2x speed, and it's probably a 2x speeder. The shit that he has you do is so sappy, but do it. The person that gave it to me said the same thing. There's like, you're not going to want to do these practices. It's like, I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but like, you're gonna, you can't see my face right now if you're listening, but like, I'm like rolling my eyes. But if you commit to do it and you do it a couple times, you will notice. It was so cool.
The answer my coach gave was really simple. It was like presence. That's the answer. Being present. It's the number one gift you can give yourself. So think about thinking about the past, depressing. Thinking about the future, anxiety. Being present. Just genuinely just being like, I'm right here. This is all I got right now. This is the only thing that's real. That's self-love. Literally stopping on your walk to smell the roses and literally like smelling the roses and observing the scent and the sensation that hits your nose and then your face, and you feel it, and like feeling the wind on your face. It's a big reason why so many surfers are so spiritual in that regard, because like we're so in it. We learn how to like feel the change of temperature and water from our feet to our knees and feel the energy of the ocean moving. Like it's ultimate presence. Get out of the water. How do you feel about yourself, regardless of how the session went?
Totally.
Pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
That's self-love. And I've been kind of meditating on that the last like 4 days a bit, and I have a long way to go here, and I'm realizing like I am never present. I struggle so hard with being present. I'm always thinking about something in the future, planning things out, scheming it out, like just living in the future, or a bit reminiscing on the past and having memories. But like, I think the next decade of my life is all about just like fucking be here now. That's it. And if that's the answer to self-love, I'm like, cool. Yep. I got a good prescription. Easy. I just needed someone to like write it, like give me the logic to it.
Yep.
Give me the prescription. Because I think that will drip to every other part of my life then. My relationships will be better, more abundant. Work will be so much better. Because at the end of the day, it's all just like, I'm good. so much security in that. But if you're not feeling that self-love, if you're not in that presence, then what's the foundation built on?
Dude, quality of relationships go up so much when you can just like sit and be with someone and you can get there quick. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's not cool. Talk about this with the guys, with your homies. How do we make that cool?
I don't think it's our job to make it cool. I think it's our job. If it's going to benefit us, it is our job to find men that want to discuss this.
Do you think there's
I'm not here to coerce anyone. That's what I say it about everything. I say it about hiring employees. I say it about fundraising. I say it about this. It is not my job to convince you to see the world through my eyes, to agree with anything that I say. It is my job to find the treasure, those who do, and to spend as much time and add as much value to them as possible. So, yeah, I don't. And then basically, and that's how all like behavior change happens is, right? You create this really core group of guys or like two guys, and then the third guy comes and he's like, yo, why are you guys so fucking happy? And then he joins, and then you guys are all present with each other and talking about self-love, and then they come, they come. And it's just the way that the fabric of the universe is sewn together. Like you create change and you like live this euphoric, joyful lifestyle. And then people just like, they just want a hit of it. They're just like, break me off a line of that joy.
A friend of mine the other day was saying, I forget the context of why we were talking about this, but it was like, I remember not too long ago, I was at a friend's house on a Sunday and all the guys were in the living room watching football. All the women were in the kitchen talking. Pretty classic, like, picture that we've all been a part of. It's like, well, I'm sitting with all the guys. There's like 7 of them. No one's talking about anything. And whenever someone says something, it just has something to do with the game. And he's not really a sports fan. He's like, so finally I just like, it's really scary. But I got up and I went in the kitchen, hung out with the women. And it was awesome. He's like, because they were raised to be comfortable getting vulnerable with each other, like actually talking about what's going on, what's on their mind. And a lot of guys would be like, "Oh, they're fucking gossiping. They're doing whatever. I don't want to be part of that." Like, He's like, it was the best thing.
Wow.
It's like we hugged it out. We were laughing. We were eating food. It was great. And I'm like, I'm not a huge sports fan anymore. I like watch football on Sundays. Like, I love hanging out in the kitchen with all these women talking about real shit.
Yes.
What's going on at work? What's going on at home? What are you struggling with? How can we help each other? And for some reason, and it's even why I asked the last question, I just have this innate duty within me. Maybe it's because I'm in that like, go at all costs type mentality stage of my life. Like, how do I get more men to open up to this, to open their eyes to this? And maybe that's not even the question to ask. It's just, how do I find the ones who are into it and just like be there?
Yeah. They'll come to you. Now that you're putting it out into the universe, like they'll come. They'll like, you'll see a buddy at Erewhon and be like, yo, can I join you for lunch? You'll both sit down and 45 minutes later you'll be like, whoa, that was the deepest conversation I've had with a dude in like 2 months.
Yeah.
And then that's like, patient zero.
Yeah, totally. There's a question I ask everyone on the show now as a way to start to wrap things up. Yeah. And you can take it as deep or as short or as long as you want. What do you think it means to be a man today?
Cool. I like it. Okay, so here are the things that came to my mind. The things that came to my mind were, I'm gonna really play gender roles here. I think we need to help women feel safer. I think we do. I think.
What does safety mean in this context?
It basically means that I want to create environments where I want to create social situations and moments and dialogue and interactions where a woman can come and she feels completely supported. And most of the time, that means asking a good question and shutting the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
And that means not trying to fuck every girl that you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And that means keeping your word and staying within integrity.
Mm-hmm.
If you say something, you're doing it. Either if you're not going to do it, then don't say it.
Mm-hmm. I'll call you tomorrow. Fucking
No.
call her.
Yeah. Or don't say it.
Yeah.
Or say, it was wonderful to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
Or something else. I think for me, whether this means being a man or not, I am trying to be ultra precise with my word.
Mm.
I am far from perfect. And it took 40 years to get to this point where, and a lot of it's like people pleasy or like not being able to deal with uncomfortable situations. I think another sign of a man now is being able to sit in uncomfortable energy without feeling too squirmy and just allowing it to pass.
Mm-hmm.
I think having the certainty to know, I think that a lot of my insecurities as a man have come from the fact that I don't believe in myself to be a provider. And I think that is a mindset that can be shifted with the injection of certainty, knowing, like, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've shown myself and the world enough times already that I can solve big problems and I can provide, and just knowing that. That's what came up. It's not the most eloquent answer.
It's a great answer.
But yeah.
The last episode answer we gave was 2 P's, provide and protect, which has always been the definition. It's just now we need to do it better. And that doesn't just mean provide money and shelter and protect physically, like at a bar. It means provide emotional safety, provide love and fun, companionship, accountability, reliability, all those things. Protect emotionally. Of course, protect safely as well. Protect your girl from herself. Protect your partner from themselves at times. Protect them from you. And what a wonderful time to start to step into these. I would even push back a little bit on the gender roles piece and be like, you framed it as help women feel safe around us. I think help everybody feel safe around us. I have a close friend who's about to go, he's at the early stages of a brutal breakup. And we talked about it earlier today. And we got fucking real. We really went there. And he needed it. And quite frankly, I needed it too. And got off the call and he was like, dude, I love you, bro. Like, I needed that. It's like, when was the last time, like, man to man, just 2 buddies who met a year ago, like, really went there? And I'm like, fuck, this is the good shit now. This is important.
This is important.
Yeah.
This is important. This is why we're here.
Yeah.
Like we talk about purpose. What's your purpose? Part of it is these micro moments. Like they, yeah, I study an ancient spirituality called Kabbalah, and one of the most famous Kabbalistic scholars, they say the only reason he was even brought to this earth was to teach one specific student, who I only believe he knew for a year. And that was his entire reason for being there. Sometimes it's like these, we don't realize, but these tiny little moments. And I try to remind myself of this, especially when I'm just like over it, when I'm like, oh, I cannot answer the phone right now. Or I'm like, I get, sometimes you get cornered and someone starts like telling you a story you don't really want to hear. And I just have to remind myself, I'm like, this might be the reason I was put here, is to be with them during this. To just sit and listen, maybe ask a question and pat them on the back. And it really calms my nerves when I hear that, when I remind myself to go there.
Love it. Last question.
Yep.
Keep this one kind of rapid fire round.
Cool.
What's the best piece of advice you've received lately that you'd want to share with the next person?
If you walk into a room and you feel uncomfortable, it is because you are trying to take from the people in the room and not share with people in the room.
Beautiful. How can people find you online?
I don't know. Instagram at Adam Greenfeld.
Dig it. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Of course.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude.
Appreciate you.
Of course.
This was great.